Welcome to this talk on GDPR. I'm joined today by Tim from Byte Software and also Angela from Microsoft. My name is Jimmy Desai. I'm a lawyer at Keystone Law and I focus on data protection law. Today we're going to talk about a few points on GDPR and compliance. And the first question that we often get from clients that come into us is, because GDPR is starting in 2018, what are the kind of things that they need to be thinking about now? So, Tim, what kind of things should people be thinking about now?
Well, in my view, there are two really important things that firms need to be getting on with immediately. The first is a user awareness campaign. It's essential that senior management and key stakeholders understand GDPR and the impacts it's going to have on their business processes. It's not an IT project, and it is for the whole of the business to own and get involved with. That's the first thing they need to do. The second thing they need to do is a data mapping exercise, because this is all about personal data, and it's important that firms understand where their data is, who can access it, why they've got it, how long they're going to keep it, and document all of that. Because without knowing that much about your data, you won't understand what your risks and exposures are and what you need to do to get compliant.
Yeah. So it's really sort of raising awareness and also data mapping as well. A couple of things that people should be thinking about right now.
Absolutely.
And so Angela, what are a few things that people should be thinking about now?
So Tim talked about data mapping before, and on the Microsoft side, we're recommending to all of our customers that they start reviewing their data management and data privacy practices. And so to kickstart their GDPR compliance, they can do that by focusing on 5 pillars for an effective data protection regime. And so those are, firstly, discovery, so thinking about and looking at where they have personal data within their organisation and where it's located. Secondly, control, so how they use and access that data and whether they have controls in place to do that. Thirdly, protection, so making sure that they have effective security measures in place to protect that data from vulnerabilities and data breaches. Fourthly, reporting, so that's supporting requests and making sure that they've got all the necessary documentation that they need under GDPR. And finally, reviewing, so that's making sure that they analyse and review their systems that they've got in place to ensure compliance and reduce risk.
Right, so that's really useful because clients coming into the office, they're often told about the legal implications, but these real structures that you have are really important in terms of allowing them to follow a process in order to become GDPR compliant. The second question that we have is about third-party processors and in particular cloud providers. And one of the questions that people have is what obligations are they under? Now, under the new GDPR, third-party processors are under direct obligations from the regulator in terms of security, notifications and other compliance requirements. So one of the questions that people ask is how they should deal with those requirements of third-party processors. And so Tim, what are your thoughts on third-party processors?
Yeah, well, third-party processors, or cloud service providers as we generally know them, they've had quite limited liability up until the present day. And in fact, the only liability they have will be based on the contractual arrangement between you as a business and they as a cloud service provider. And that changes dramatically under GDPR, where they've got new obligations, not just to you, the controller, but also directly to the ICO and in some cases to the data subject themselves. So therefore it's becoming and very cleverly the GDPR is policing this mechanism by making it an obligation of you as a business to ensure that the cloud service providers you engage with are compliant. So therefore, in my view, there are 4 key questions that every business needs to ask their cloud service providers. Firstly, you need some form of assurance of their actual compliance or intention to be compliant. Secondly, you need to understand whether or not you can search for your data on their systems. Thirdly, you need to be able to ensure that you can delete data from their systems. And lastly, you need to understand that you've got the ability to export data from their systems.
That's great. So those are 4 great questions that organisations can ask their providers. And Angela, what are your thoughts? Microsoft, third-party processor, what are your views?
So compliance is an extremely important issue to Microsoft, and I think GDPR, just brings that to a head. Microsoft is taking a number of steps to ensure and demonstrate that we are GDPR compliant when enforcement begins in May 2018. So I'll just go through some of those now. The first one is our compliance with law's obligation, which is currently in our licensing agreements with customers, and so that provides that Microsoft will be compliant with all applicable laws and regulations which are applied to our online services. And that includes security breach notification laws. Secondly, with regards to GDPR specifically, we're currently in the process of updating our contractual commitments with customers so that GDPR specific obligations will be included in our licensing agreements with customers, and that will provide for things like timely security notifications to customers. And finally, in terms of compliance more generally, Microsoft is the cloud service provider which has the most comprehensive set of compliance capabilities. So if you take, for example, our Microsoft Azure service, that has over 50 different compliance attestations and certifications. And more broadly, we were the first cloud service provider to achieve compliance with the ISO 27018 cloud privacy standard, and also the first provider to have our EU model clauses which apply in relation to international data transfers approved by the data protection authorities in Europe.
Right, so what's coming out of our discussion is that people need to be looking at their contracts, and they also need to be asking the right questions in terms of GDPR compliance. And the final question that we have is that there's obviously a lot of work to do in terms of GDPR compliance, and what we're finding with clients is that we're helping them to prioritise what they should be doing first in terms of legal obligations. In terms of what you're finding, Tim, how are you helping people with next steps now?
Yeah, so what we've done at Bytes is we've developed something called the GDPR Essentials Framework, and it's a methodology that's designed to help businesses get towards as compliant as we know what compliant means, ready for 2018. And it's a 4-stage framework that starts with an education piece, and we do that by holding internal workshops, primarily for the key stakeholders and senior management, so that they understand the key impact areas and everybody gets to realise very quickly the areas of the business that are going to be impacted here. The second piece of it is the discovery phase, and that's where we help businesses go through their impact assessment, their data mapping, and essentially through that process, and it's essential that they look at both their systems and their processes, and they document where data is moving around the business, where it is, who can access it, those areas. When they start to document these processes, the risks start to jump out, and you get things like your marketing system may have thousands of contacts in there with no auditable consent. You might have that you're keeping personnel records way longer than you perhaps need to after somebody's left the firm. There are a number of areas around the business, and what we do is we build a risk register. because essentially GDPR is one big risk assessment. And the risk register is taken back to the senior management team, and then they have to decide how important these risks are and what we're going to do about it. And that's where we move into the third phase, which is the planning phase. And the planning phase is all about what are we going to do to mitigate any of those risks that we've uncovered. And those particular tasks are then handed out to the key stakeholders of the business, which could be HR, marketing, IT, finance, could be anybody. And that helps businesses move towards what is a much better picture of compliance. But it doesn't end there because, of course, there's achieving compliance and then there's staying compliant post 2018. So we also have a set of templated documents that help businesses put the processes together that are going to keep them compliant in the future. Things like how to respond to a data subject access request, having the right incident response processes in place, and keeping the new mandatory processing records. So it's a sort of full package really to help them get compliant today but maintain compliancy going forward.
And it seems to me that what's really coming out of this is that organisations need themselves to become actively involved in this, rather than simply just outsourcing this GDPR compliance programme to a third party. It's people really becoming hands-on in an organisation amongst a number of stakeholders in order to get GDPR compliant. Is that your view?
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, because my experience of working with businesses so far is there are two key benefits to them getting involved. Firstly, there's not really much chance of an external consultancy agency on their own understanding thoroughly the processes that the business are involved with or where the data is. You're going to need internal help and knowledge for that. And secondly, and the real benefit of the business getting involved and not just trying to outsource this effectively as a paid-for piece of work, is if they've got any hope of maintaining compliance going forward, this is a fantastic exercise for them to understand the processes that are in place and where their data is, and making key decisions about whether they're going to keep this data, how they're going to protect this data going forward. And therefore, yes, their involvement is critical.
And one thing that I'm finding, certainly when I'm talking to clients, is that what they're saying is that individuals are saying that they're so busy with their day jobs that how on earth can they actually fit in GDPR compliance when they're so busy already? I mean, is that something that you found?
I do hear that, but there is no escaping the fact that there needs to be some ownership and some involvement from the business. And what Bytes can do is we'll obviously manage the process for you, but also there's potentially backfill to do. My experience so far, the senior management really have a sort of overseeing role to play, and it doesn't take too much of their time. The actual doing part of it is coming from IT and potentially the risk department. And yes, they may need to pull people off of existing projects, but then they can be backfilled. So there is always a way to achieve providing the resource. And in fact, going back to the first parts of this discussion, one of the key reasons for starting your work now and understanding what your risk is and what you need to do is because you need to plan for this in terms of resource and budget.
And so there's obviously a lot of work to do in terms of GDPR compliance. So Angela, in terms of next steps for an organisation, what kind of things would you suggest from your point of view?
Yeah, so Microsoft is doing a number of things to assist customers with their GDPR compliance, and our goal at Microsoft is to help customers in that compliance journey through smart technology and innovation. And so we're doing a number of things to kind of assist with our customers' compliance. The first one is demonstrating how our existing products and services assist with GDPR compliance. And so, for example, some of our products, so Windows 10, Office 365, Dynamics 365 and Microsoft Azure, as well as our EMS suite, have a number of features already in their existing products and services to assist customers with their GDPR compliance. And we count, among our customer base, over 90% of the Fortune 500 companies. We, Microsoft, spend over $1 billion a year annually on security. And so it's just, pointing out to our customers where products and services can assist them with their compliance. Secondly, we are investing time and resources into adding features and functionality to our products and services to further assist with GDPR compliance. And so that will do things like assisting customers to catalogue their personal data and map where that data is. And finally, sharing. So, that's one of the most important aspects of this compliance work, is sharing the experience and the learnings which Microsoft has had on its own compliance journey with its customers, so that they can benefit from the same learnings.
Right, and I think that is that's useful, because customers now know that there's resources from Bytes and also resources from Microsoft that they can take advantage of in order to help their data compliance programs.
Yeah, so on the Microsoft side, we have GDPR Resources in our Trust Centre. So I direct any customers who are looking for resources to have a look there. And also our blog, which has been written by our Chief Privacy Officer, Brendan Lynch, is also a really interesting resource to look at on GDPR.
So Tim, if people want more information for their compliance programs, how do they get in touch with you at Bytes?
Well, they can contact Bytes directly via the Bytes website, or there will be details at the end of this video, or if you already have a Bytes account manager, then they're the best person to talk to.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for joining me here at Keystone Law, and it's been great to hear more about your thoughts on GDPR compliance, and especially how people can get further information in terms of helping their compliance programs.